I'll try to be good.
I've said it before, this is a town board workshop, 5:30, Thursday, November 12th. I'm on record to say I enjoy workshops a lot more than the formal board meetings. A lot of pressure is off the board. We're not usually voting on spending the town's money. This is just more good conversation and, you know. Right, Charlie?
Whatever you say.
Okay, great. All right. Well, tonight's schedule, I think we have 4 items. The first one is a discussion on the streamlining of fire, life, and safety system inspections for the town of Webster. And I think, can we still call you our new fire marshal?
Sure.
True?
Sure.
When does new, because have you been in it for over a year now?
I think I need to get about 10 years in before I can lose the new
Okay,
portion,
well,
so.
relatively, well, to all of us, younger fire marshal. Andrew, I'll let you kind of tell us about this.
So what I want to talk about is a way to streamline my job as well as my deputy fire marshal's job. When we go into an establishment that has fire alarm system, sprinkler system, hood ansel system, any system that gets tested on a regular basis, we'll have to ask for the records, and sometimes businesses or the property owners don't have the records on file. There's a company out there that I have found called the Compliance Engine, which is a third-party company with a cloud-based service that, when passing a resolution in the town, would require all the reports that would typically go to the business owners and myself for review would be uploaded to the Compliance Engine. Everything would be in one spot. I can log into the computer, view, say Burger King, I can see when the last time their system was inspected. I have everything on file. It is no cost to the town to use this service. The contractors that do the system testing pay a nominal upload fee to upload the report, which in turn will get them more business, because the Compliance Engine will send reminders to businesses that they're due for their annual inspection. They'll send a reminder if there was a deficiency to get the deficiency corrected within so many days. And they will also notify me if the deficiencies aren't taken care of within a certain amount of time, so that way I can enforce the Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code. So there was 2 options for utilizing the Compliance Engine. There would be a resolution passed to amend Chapter 124 of the Town Code, which is the Fire Prevention Code, and I put a notice out to the board members about what it would say, and we can also do a revenue share with the Compliance Engine. So there could be a $10 fee on top of the upload fee, so it would be a total of $25 for them to upload the report, and that $10 would come back to the town as far as administration costs for reviewing the records and handling the records. So the fire marshal's office would see a revenue income on the record, or on the fire and life safety system testing throughout the town of Webster. And they do all the legwork getting everything started. They will notify contractors within a certain radius of the town of Webster and let them know that the reports have to be uploaded. They'll hold town hall seminars and webinars on how to utilize that service, so that way all the contractors are aware of how to upload and how everything works.
Looking at the agreement, Andrew, this is, we are the client, or is the client the individual who is getting the inspection?
We are the client as far as So there was two that I had provided to the town for
Right,
the.
one with revenue share and one without.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the one without, we could say with that one, that the client shall not pay any fees for the solution, which is the third-party cloud service. And then if you get into the revenue share, then that's where everything is collected by the compliance engine. They take the, like, a 7% for the credit card processing, and then everything else comes back to the town. And it also, like, a benefit of this as well is it drives compliance, because there's some businesses in some places in the town of Webster that they aren't getting things inspected as frequently as they should be. Commercial businesses, we do inspections on them once every 3 years. So there's 2 years that we won't be in that business to make sure that they've had their sprinkler system done, per se. And then when we go, we say, well, you gotta have it inspected. If there was ever a deficiency or something happened at that business where a sprinkler had prematurely let go because it was fatigued because they hadn't been inspected in 30 years, you know, it helps the business because it prevents nuisance alarms or nuisance issues happening with fire and life safety systems.
Is that call it triannual inspection that we conduct, is that by code or
That's
by
by
law?
code. That's by, well, it's the Title 19
Okay.
of the New York compilation of rules and regulations.
So it's by law that we have to inspect that every 3 years. Are businesses aware that they're responsible for an inspection annually?
So businesses are aware that they have to, we'll take a restaurant, for example, with an Ansel system for the kitchen hood. They are aware that they have to have it inspected every 6 months. And some do, some don't. So when I go in there every year and I see that it hasn't been done every 6 months, then I say it has to be done every 6 months. And it's a constant game. But if we were to utilize this compliance engine, they're sending the reminders 30 days out, and they say you have to have your hood system inspected to be in accordance with the fire code. Then things are getting done, less chance of issues happening.
And will all contractors be signed on with this?
By passing the resolution, it would say that all inspections done in the town of Webster
Got it.
would have to have the reports uploaded to the compliance engine.
Okay. All right. It's starting to make sense to me now. And thank you for sending all of this in advance of the meeting. I was somewhat confused as I was reading through it as to who the contractor was, but now I get it.
So ultimately, the businesses that have testing done more frequently will end up paying for the service of having those inspections done, because the contractors will pass that cost back down to the
Of course.
business. So,
Andrew, and I know the genre of the only stupid question is the one not asked. I have two that I hope don't end up being considered stupid. One is that, it's just for my edification, these aren't inspections that would usually be done by the fire marshal. These are actually inspections that would have been
Correct.
done by...
these are inspections that are done by certified personnel for the type of system that they are. And it's usually based on an NFPA requirement that they are inspected at a certain frequency.
Okay. That was the one thing I couldn't glean from reading this. I didn't think that you and or Jamie were somewhat divesting yourself of certain inspections that the fire marshal's department does at Webster within this scope. These are ones that would be done by outside contractors.
Right, and it's streamlining it for us, so that way when we go, we're not constantly asking for the records and everything.
Yeah.
That we can view them prior to going and doing a fire and safety inspection, and we are aware that they've had their system or they're inspected.
Yeah, and the second, I don't know if it's a question or a comment, is that, not that, I don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth, because when you hear it doesn't cost anything to the town, that on the surface is very good. But if anybody's familiar with the service from freeconferencecalling.com. You don't pay anything for that, but you get a number. Have you ever been on one of those numbers and had the call just not be very good and it's not reliable? How do you complain about that, Patty? You getting what you paid for?
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Not to be a wise guy, but I mean, if we're, and I don't know if this is the difference between revenue sharing and not revenue sharing, but if we're in, this is not a contract, we're signing is what I'm understanding, this is more with the,
so what we would be doing is, once we would pass a resolution, we would be entering into an agreement with Brycer for the compliance engine. And I have spoken to multiple different fire departments and municipalities that have adopted this, and they have nothing bad to say about it. I've even asked like the worst questions, and nothing has come back negative. It's actually driven compliance in towns, and it's made their jobs easier for doing inspections.
interesting. Bear?
The city of Syracuse was recent, they had adopted it.
Would you briefly explain the revenue sharing again, if we decide to go that route?
So currently, the contractor to upload a report pays $15 for an upload of a report. If there's a deficiency listed on that report, and then they go and do a correction for that deficiency and have to upload the amended report, there's no upload fee for the repair upload, basically. So they pay the $15. The $15 is what covers the cost of the compliance engine to do business. And if we...
I'm sorry, by the contractor, you mean the person whose system is being inspected or looked at?
The person who's doing the inspection.
Yeah.
So say we, as just an example, we have, who's the alarm system that we have? So Sonatrol. So if Sonatrol comes in and they're supposed to be doing an annual inspection of the fire alarm system here at the town, Sonatrol would be paying the $15 to upload the report to the compliance engine.
So they sort of inspect the inspectors.
The compliance engine will, and they review all the documents. If they find deficiencies listed on there, then they'll contact the town of Webster and say, we noticed that there was deficiencies, have you had them corrected yet? So then the inspector would make the repair, upload the report stating that everything is functional and working. They're not going to pay another $15 to upload the repair report, basically.
So we're requiring the inspectors to pay the money,
Yes,
the $15.
yes.
Okay, I'm still confused as to where's the sharing?
So the revenue share, the $15 is for the compliance engine. The revenue share would be added to the fee schedule for the fire prevention block for next week. So I've added an item on there for fire and life safety system maintenance administrative fee. So that $10 would go on top of the $15, so it would be a $25 upload fee, and then we get $10 minus a handling charge, because they're credit card charges usually. So we would get the remainder of the $10 back to the town quarterly.
So we're performing a service as well?
We're reviewing all the documents that get uploaded to the compliance engine, and that's the $10 fee.
You sort of know where I'm going with this. I mean, with the town, we can't just take money, I mean, it's
Correct.
almost like a, okay. I don't know what it looks like, but
The charge of the $10 fee.
we have to provide a service if we're entitled to a reasonable payment for a service if we provide a service.
Yes. So it would be reviewing all those electronic records that get uploaded to the compliance engine.
Okay.
And I'm gonna assume the contractor's passing on that cost within their fee that they charge to the restaurant or the commercial building. But I don't know what scope of inspections this covers. I think you actually, but typical inspection of a grill or whatever is $100.
So if you have we'll say one of the inspections I want to have on there is the hood cleaning, because sometimes those aren't getting done as frequently as they should be. But with the hood cleaning, that's upwards of over $700.
And how often is that done?
Should be every 6 months. In a frequently used hood,
Commercial
cooking,
kitchen,
commercial
probably.
kitchen, any restaurant or bar that's open daily, it should be done every 6 months.
Okay, that's the cost of the cleaning,
That's the cost of the cleaning.
not the inspection.
The cleaning and inspection at the same time. So they would pay the steam cleaning company to come in and do the cleaning and inspection. That's $700. Or more or less, depending on what contractor you go with. That was just based on one receipt that I saw from a company that had it done recently.
And that's how frequently?
It doesn't have to be cleaned every 6 months. It has to be inspected every 6 months.
But it has to be cleaned every 6 months. So,
No.
It has to be cleaned if the grease accumulation is above a certain
Yeah, okay.
thickness.
If it won't pass inspection?
Correct.
Okay.
But the contractor doing the cleaning is also the one doing the inspection?
Yes, so usually if they,
Yep, needs to be done, needs to be done.
but not all the time, but like with the Ansel systems, those are done because you have fusible links up behind the filters for the hood system, and over time with the heat and exposure, they weaken, and if they're not inspected and changed out frequently enough, they can fail, and the restaurant can shut down for a couple of days due to an Ansel system going off when it shouldn't.
You know, as much as I like to see revenue, we all like to see revenue, I'm not real anxious to pass on an additional $10 so that the town can get a portion of this revenue. I don't think that's a really great way for us to be doing business in the town.
No, and to Charlie's point, you know, you get into the, is collecting that money, are we doing the service? But I also want to just make sure that the shop owner, whatever, whether it's restaurant or whatever, they're not now pigeonholed into using a contractor that is with Brycer. Is that correct?
There is no affiliation between contractors and Brycer.
Okay.
It is only that it is all going to one place, and
Right.
that is the only thing.
And that's important because obviously, I just want to make sure that if we ever did this resolution, this is certainly, I can see the benefit. It doesn't cost the town taxpayers anything. It gives our fire marshals a database to check on these things.
It's also reducing the amount of times that fire departments will go to an establishment because they don't have their fire alarm system tested annually, and they get a lot of nuisance, or it's a detector goes off randomly and calls the fire department out at 3 o'clock in the morning, which happens frequently enough, and it'll reduce nuisance alarms for fire departments as well.
I have another question. It's a hypothetical. So, a business, whatever it might be, does not have the inspection done on a timely manner, and they get a reminder, and they don't have it done. Then they'll get another reminder that it wasn't done, or they get a deficiency report of some sort?
I will be notified, myself or Jamie will be notified that they are deficient in, if they were due for an annual, and then at whatever we set it to be, 30 days, 60 days, if they're 60 days outside of their annual or 6 month, and they still haven't had a report uploaded to the compliance engine, then myself or Jamie will get an email stating that this restaurant here did not have their system inspected, and then that would drive us to go out there to enforce.
But you wouldn't be doing that inspection, I mean, if it was done last year, let's say your 3-year inspection was done last year,
Right.
and they don't do their annual this year, you go out again for enforcement, even though it's the 3 years isn't up?
The 3 years is a minimum.
I see.
So places of assembly are 1 year, multifamily dwellings, a lot of the big multifamily dwellings that we have here every 2 years, and then commercial, every other commercial business or small business could be an office in a converted house, or it can be something as much as Xerox, or those are every 3 years.
Because we're running out of time to stay on schedule, and we're not, obviously, this is a discussion so that in the next couple of board meetings, if we decide to do a
Correct.
resolution, I think, what I think I feel on this is threefold. If the business owner is not beholden to using the contractors that are tied into Bryson, or Brycer, because obviously, those contractors are gonna pass that $15 on in some form or fashion to the consumer, which is the business owner. So as long as the business owner is not beholden to using a contractor that reports into Brycer, whatever it's called.
Well, they are.
No, because the resolution that we would pass would be that all reports done within the town of Webster would be uploaded to the compliance engine. So any business can use any contractor they want, but that contractor that they use would have to upload the report to the compliance engine.
Right. So our resolution states that all of that has to go into this data collecting.
Correct.
Is this what the other towns and municipalities you contacted have done with Brycer?
Yes, some have just chosen to do the no fee, no additional fee or revenue share, and then some have chosen to do a revenue share.
Okay, so on my not beholden thing, a business goes out and gets ABC and inspectors, who is not at all privy to this resolution we did. And so we don't know that they're in Brycer, and you get pinged, you and Jamie, and so you go out there and say, hey, man, you haven't done this. I said, no, we did. We went through ABC a month ago. So then you got to contact ABC and say, hey, we have a resolution here at the law that you got to upload it, and you got to pay $15 to upload it there. Is that how that would work?
That they would, yes, if the contractor did not know that the record had to be uploaded to the compliance engine, then they would be notified that that's how.
Okay. And that, if that's the way it would work, that fits into my first premise of the business owner is not beholden to using a contractor that's already in Brycer. Actually, if they went out and used a contractor, as long as they're an accredited contractor for whatever the inspection, whatever it is, they probably didn't, they paid $15 less, and I can't imagine the contractor would go back and rebill them. Good by me. Second one is, it's zero cost to the taxpayers. That's good. And the third one is I would love to know within the contract, can the town of Webster, the fire marshal, somewhat download out of the cloud these records periodically? So you have them on our server or whatever, because I'm going to go back to the freeconferencecall.com. If this becomes really a useful tool for you and Jamie and the town's fire marshals, and suddenly it goes away, we don't pay anything to them. We don't really have a dog in the fight to argue with them. What do you mean it went away? So I'd like to know that we can pull that information out of the cloud, so at least when it goes away, we have a point in time.
So we have ownership, in other words, so.
Yeah, and they might say, well, no, we're not going to give you that because you're paying zero. Well, you know,
So those
that's a
records-
consideration of the board.
Listen, he's answering your question.
So those records that are getting uploaded are not a requirement for us to have on file. I've started keeping them on file, but it's a record that the business has to have on file for our inspection purposes when we go to inspect annually, biannual, triannually, that they have those records maintained. So when they get uploaded, the customer, the business owner will ultimately get a copy, but a copy does get uploaded to the compliance engine. So we don't need to, say, download anything to our servers. And there is a part of the agreement that says that Brycer will maintain the records for a minimum of X amount of years. if we ever choose to end the agreement with them, or if they end it with us.
So we are not required to keep those records, but I imagine you have some sort of Excel spreadsheet or whatever it might be where you look at what inspections are due and when they've been done, and you might add a column that says deficiency noted on such and such a date. And that's really all we're required to keep. We're not even required to keep that, but it would help you. You don't need the actual record that's on their cloud.
Correct, because currently I get reports sporadically from different inspection companies, and then I review them and make sure that there are no deficiencies, and if there are deficiencies, then I follow up with the business.
Are those contractors required to send you these deficiency reports?
Currently, there is nothing in the current fire code. There was in the 2010 fire code, which stated that that was the case.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry to be peppering you with all
That's
these
fine.
questions. This is just so, I think, new to all of us.
Yeah,
That it's, there's a lot that we need to understand about it, and thank you, I appreciate it.
it sounds good. I just,
I have a question. Andrew, do you have like Patty was leading to, an inventory of where the ansels are, who has what fire suppression, stuff like that, so there's a way to checks and balance it?
So through IPS, which is a software system we currently use, we mark whether they have a type 1 hood and ansel system, sprinkler system, fire alarm system. It is documented in IPS. And if we were to enter into an agreement with Brycer, we share that information out of IPS, which gives them a head start, and they do all the legwork for contacting and finding companies that we may not have known about or that may have recently gotten an alarm system, but they go through and canvass the companies and find all the information and provide that to us. So I think it's a benefit for us because they're doing the legwork to see who has what and when it was last inspected and who the owners of the property are. They reach out as well, so.
And who's going to let the contractors know
So-
that we passed this resolution?
So what Brycer does is they draft a letter to and send to all the companies which deal with fire and life safety systems
Got it.
in a certain radius of Webster and mail it out to them and say, this is what the town of Webster has passed, this is what we're going to be doing, we're going to hold a town hall seminar, if this is the link to view how Brycer works, the compliance engine works, how the upload works.
Yep.
And they work with all the contractors, and they expect that in the first year, you're gonna have 20 to 30%, and then the second year, 30 to 60, and then roughly 80 by the third year. And it just takes a little bit of time. That's why they do it in the 3-year agreement that continually renews unless we choose to back out.
Have you heard of any of the contractors that are unable to comply with Brycer or work with Brycer?
I have not looked into that yet. I have talked to a couple different contractors when I've been out doing inspections, and I'll meet up with like an ansel system inspection, and I asked the owner, I said, hey, what do you think about this? And he says, it sounds like a good idea, and I would just have to build it into my cost. So they didn't see that $15 as a burden.
Well, I wasn't thinking so much of the cost, Andrew. I was thinking more of in terms of like programming and being compatible with uploading the information. Have you heard of any of the inspection companies having a problem with getting their information to Brycer and working with this compliance engine?
I have not, and that is a question that I can talk to Brycer because they work closely with the contractors to build at least a template for the upload of the report.
So if we sign a contract with these folks, they're gonna have a seminar here and invite all of the contractors,
So it would be a virtual. It would
so they're
be-
gonna have a virtual,
Yes,
it's gonna go out to all of the contractors in the area that do all the inspections
yes,
for all these places, and then those people will then know about it, and once they do an inspection, they will send their information to Brycer.
correct.
So Brycer will then have it on file, and will be able to notify the places. Brycer will also have a database of all the places in Webster that get inspected,
Yes, and they also will send mailings 30 to 60 days out.
so that they will send notifications to all those places that you're due for an inspection and follow up.
Yes.
I got it.
It's,
And if we need to, I can set up something with Bryce or with the town board where they can do a Zoom webinar as well if they need any more information.
So this process, what will help you to make sure there's nobody slipping through the holes?
Correct,
Slipping through the cracks.
and that there's compliance
There's
within,
compliance, and because they'll be getting notifications, then there should not be any situations where they're out of compliance and we're having to come at 3 o'clock in the morning because they have a faulty,
smoke
how do you
detectors.
call it, in one
Yep.
of their hoods, and that should prevent a lot of that.
Yes.
What are you laughing at?
There are these kind of businesses and services that it's a win for the town. It's a win really for everybody around, and then they're making money. I'm not here to, Brycer, it must work for them. It's great. I like it. It's certainly, if it works the way it's described, it's a win. I would say, and Charlie, what I've learned in contract law is that if I don't pay $1 to you, then I don't really have a claim against you if you reneged on the contract.
Well, I tell you, that's consideration. It's called
Consideration, yes. In the town, as long as we understand, we are not in a position where we paid any consideration. That where they say they'll keep the records for 3 years. This is a win for us, but if we use this tool to become more efficient and we, really become dependent on it, that's why I asked the question. I'd like to know if we can pull down the data so at least, it's like backing up your iPhone to the cloud. So if the iPhone dies, you at least can go pull it out of the cloud. That if we become dependent on this and they do all of a sudden have a glitch or go out of business and this and that, and all of our records were basically the last 3 or 4 years on this were accessed by the cloud and we don't have any at our disposal, we don't have a claim against them.
So the thing is with the business getting
In my opinion.
with the business getting the copy and it being uploaded to the compliance engine, is that even if they were to fault or if they were to go away, the business still has the copy of the record, and we would just go back to when we go for a fire and safety inspection, we would ask them, do you have the copy of your last 3 sprinkler inspections?
Well, it does say in the contract, I'm just looking at it, if you look under, there's 2 number 2s, but this is the second number 2, under Brycer responsibilities, they have backup. It says they'll back up the database upon request by client. Well, it's a client. They will make available to the client, well, we're the client, a complete and secure that is encrypted and approximately authenticated download file of client data. So if we request it, they'll give it to us according to this contract. I guess maybe they didn't.
I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill. I would just
No, but
say that,
that's an important thing, I
You know.
think. Yeah.
and I would imagine, if they have a problem with us, I hope we don't, you just want to have periodically, I know what you're saying, if we don't have that, we just go out to the business and we can recreate it, ask them to pull their record. Well, that's inefficient. We're doing this to be efficient so you and Jamie can go and look. Knowledge is power, there it all is.
Correct.
If it goes away, because we've become totally dependent on it being there in the cloud, that would be a problem for us. Yeah, we could
I'm
deal
saying
with
we would-
businesses one-on-one. I'm just saying that,
We would go back to the way we're doing it right now.
yeah.
Which, for streamlining it and making it as a tool and making it more time efficient, that's why this is there, but there's no other.
I'm gonna guess, based on what you just, we'll be able to figure out, if we get to this resolution.
And also,
Yeah.
number 4, it says the client owns the data provided.
Okay, there you go. So within that ownership means that during our relationship with them, we get with Steve Peace and whatever and figure out how to somehow periodically back up our iPhone, so to speak.
Okay.
So if it goes away. And I don't mean to be a buzzkill and whatever, but
We'll look at this again, but I think a lot of these questions are probably answered in the contract.
Realize too, you're changing behavior. Even if they went, it's a 3-year contract, and they get in the habit of knowing that it's the law and it's a 6-month requirement, you're gonna start to instill a new behavior, which will help his job.
They should be doing that now.
Exactly, but this might be a friendly reminder.
we have restaurants and bars left to do this stuff when we come out of this.
So next step is that our attorney will take a look at the contract,
Yeah.
and we'll move this forward at one of our meetings.
Yeah, I would think that based on your timeline of getting this going, I mean, if we
We should
tighten it
have
up
this
in
right.
resolution and, we got 4 more formal board meetings before January 1st, if you
My
count the organization meeting.
expectation was to have this after the first of the year.
Okay.
I-
To have it in place by the first of the year.
Correct.
I think we can do that.
I think so. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for answering all the questions.
No problem.
And by the way, if you feel that we put you through a deposition, I think it fits exactly into what efficient organization and having tools and ticking and tying. If it works the way you just described, it's awesome. So, maybe we ask a lot of questions because it seems too good to be true. Anyway,
Or that we're not totally familiar with what he does it for a living.
and that's why I was laughing before. It's these things are out there that create value to us that doesn't cost us anything. Wow. I bet you we can catch up. It really depends on the questions from the board members on the next one to Charlie, because the discussion on the town engineer position, this was from last week, and with Brayton not being in the room, we decided to put the brakes on and just step back, tie in some details to actually the next 2 agenda items. But on the town engineer one, and I was saying, Charlie, before you came.
Go ahead, Andy.
Good night, Andy.
Thanks,
Thank you.
That Brayton Connor, Charlie, you and I sat down and actually went over what was in the packet for the board. Brayton had kind of put a Q&A together for our meeting, and this is just a derivation of it that went out to the board members after our meeting. So with Brayton being out of town tonight, you're kind of stepping into the role of being the noted authoritative figure on these things.
Okay.
Sorry. Well, let's put it this way, Charlie. Do you think the board would rather hear you be the noted authoritative figure on this, or me?
I'm not getting near that one.
Yeah, exactly.
I will.
What Charlie has to say.
Thank you, Patty, and
I think that this is what Braden gave us. We met, as Tom said, we met on Tuesday to go over the town engineer position. The town used to have an engineer position, I guess many years ago, before my time here. And they abolished it. Some towns have either a town engineer or a hired engineer for the town, which is usually a firm.
That's what we used to do.
Yeah, as opposed, but you can, under the town law, we are a town of the first class, we can have a town engineer. It is a position some way similar to mine and the town clerks, in that the person has to be if you pick a person, call them town engineer, they have to be a town resident. And they become town officials, so they're actually town officials as opposed to just an independent contractor or a hiree. We don't have one, I believe, in our code. I couldn't find one in our current code that we have the position. The town board can create the position. The town board can also abolish a position. It's not anything permanent. It isn't like a chartered thing where you have to go to referendum. I mean, there's nothing super complicated about it. It can be created and taken off. Probably you would do it by local law. I did discuss that with Braden. He wasn't so familiar with local laws because he dealt with the county legislature, which is a little bit different. But I explained to him that we do everything here by local law. Some things we pass by resolution, some by local law. I think this would be a local law. We'd create the position. We'd have to spell it out what it is. The other question that he raised was whether or not we would have to keep somebody in, I'm sorry, not keep, have somebody who is a resident. And I'm of the opinion also, I will further check on this, but the question is if we create it and we find somebody that's very capable, but they don't live in the town of Webster, can we then waive that requirement by law? I think that may be a home rule request. There's sometimes, as you know, those of you who've been on the board, well, both of you have been on the board a long time, and Supervisor Flaherty's new to it, but we have waived residency requirements a few times in other cases. These were, I would say, more subordinate positions, not a position like a town engineer, which is either department head or just below department head. So anyway, it's certainly doable. I think the key is finding the exact description of town engineer and what their duties are going to be, and then codifying them into our code somewhere. So, I don't know, is there anything else, Tom, you want me to answer? Or
No, well, you just proved, you spoke a lot better than I would have spoken on this one, so Patty and Barry, your instincts were correct, and it was the noted authoritative. But layman terms, to me, the position is posted. Since it's doable, we will continue to see what candidates come out. And would need to keep the board apprised of that. And you think about, Barry, the process we went through with Chris Bilo. It's a process. You're going through vetting first interview candidates, then second interview. So this shouldn't spring up on the board as a surprise when we get close to, the candidate that we think is going to be the one that we're going to make an offer to and we want to appoint to this position. We should have some lead time. And whether they live in town or don't live in town might, the bus on which way we go.
Well, the other thing is too, when we discussed this, I guess, okay, if I openly discuss this, Tom, the fact is we did discuss about making it a provisional appointment, where then we would deal with the residency. I mean, if it became an issue, we would deal with the residency requirement that way anyway, because the person probably would come in provisionally, correct? Or potentially provisionally. It's
I would think.
Because the supervisor just said something, and I said, I don't think so, but when we create this position, when we describe it, at that point, do we have to set forth whether there's a residency requirement or not, and then later decide to waive it? Or can we leave that open and decide how to do it?
I think I'll work with Brayton about developing. We'll see how we word that, okay?
Okay.
Why would it be provisional?
Please look at him, not me. Well, because that's a way of dealing with it with civil service that makes it easier for us. It gives us a bigger net, I guess.
Provisional, according to what, will they have to test?
Well, that's what I think Brayton still has to find out, doesn't he?
Okay, so in that case, it would be provisional until
Yeah.
they tested in
Yeah.
finished in the top
Yeah,
three.
because it is a civil service type position, it's an
Okay.
exempt civil service position, or, I get those things confused.
Yeah.
But it isn't something, it isn't a typical civil service position, but it is a civil service position, and there are certain requirements. And I think one of the issues that, or one of the things we talked about with Braden is that he obviously has to go to the Civil Service Commission and talk to them, and they only meet like once every couple of months or something, and it's not, you know, they deal with a whole bunch of various issues. And, I mean, I'm glad he's there, because civil service is not fun to deal with, and can be very confusing, and can also hamstring municipalities that are trying to fill positions. But in this case, we're trying to create a position. And I know we're trying to create it because we're creating a new, you know, division of
How to run the
Yeah.
Department of Public Works. I will tell you this, that at least as of our meeting on Tuesday, Charlie, Brayton, and I, that, and I'm not exactly sure why this is, and Brayton even said he's not sure why this is. The position was posted for 8 or 9 days at that point, and we don't have one candidate yet. And we kind of said, well, let's not delve too much into why that is. And you noticed, Charlie, Brayton knows his stuff.
Yeah.
We're in good hands when it comes to, you know, and he's also been very humble to say he doesn't know town law that well. He's reading it and trying to get up to stuff on it, and I appreciate that. And, you know, he knows what he knows, but he also is being honest with what he doesn't know, and he's trying to get up to date on it. So, but we kind of said that I don't want to sit there and try to really delve in now to figure out why we haven't got a candidate. He's got a very specific job description. He's got a very specific duties that fall into this category for the civil service position. So he really crossed his T's and he dotted his I's. We said, let's get the next two topics squared away, and then we'll turn our attention to, if we're now at 2.5, 3 weeks, and we don't have a candidate, we might need to pivot on this.
It's
and
out
what that
there.
means.
Because I had a fellow ask me the other day about it.
Well, tell the guy to freaking apply.
He just retired, I don't think he wants to retire. But he said he's getting the information on one of his
Yeah.
searches, whatever you would call it.
As long as the board is comfortable with the fact that, go with what Charlie said, it's doable. I want the posting to continue and see what comes out. The fact that nothing has come out in 8 or 9 days as of Tuesday, and I haven't talked to Brayton since then, maybe something came in the last 2 days. But I'll say again, I'm not getting my mind wrapped around this town engineer situation as much until we get I always get this wrong, the next topic of discussion, if we're ready to move on to it, is the provisional director of community development position, and then also the appointment of Josh Artuso into that position. I think this was discussed last week too. Josh, I think in a meeting you were at this week with Brayton, I think you were at it. Let's get this squared away, and then you're going to be integral in a lot of ways in the discussion about the town engineer. Just the way the org chart that you showed the board last week works, because it's not just vertical like a typical org chart. It shows that horizontal tie-in to literally being kind of slang. There comes a point in the process of the zoning board or the planning board where you are handing the baton off of a development to the town engineer. Is that essentially? So,
Yeah.
The working relationship you're going to have with that town engineer, Joe, the working relationship the highway superintendent's going to have with that town engineer. The way we envision it, it's going to be tight. It's not a vertical reporting to each other, but that horizontal line that we showed you last week, it's critical that those positions work in concert together. So, we talked about this last week as far as a resolution to create a provisional director of community development position, and then an individual resolution thereafter to appoint Josh Artuso into that position. We decided to step back, which was the right move last week. I hate to do this to you again, Charlie, but based on our meeting with Brayton the other day, and since Brayton is not here, you're the noted authoritative figure, in my opinion, on this one.
On which one now is this?
The son of a gun. The 6 o'clock time frame that we're 25 minutes late on is...
You mean the third item?
The third item, which really is two board resolutions. One to create the provisional director of community development position, and the second one in sequence would be then to appoint Josh Artuso into that position. Now, in the packet, there is, once again, the Q&A that Brayton put together on this. I'm trying to think, well, it's the first and second question here. What steps are required to create the head of community development department? And then he didn't put it as an answer, he put it as a discussion piece. And then the next question is, what steps are required to appoint Mr. Artuso head of the community development department?
All right, you want my opinion? My opinion is I think the town board can establish that position. All right?
You are so much more succinct than me, you know?
Thank you.
You know, tell you, Barry, my self-esteem is... Well,
But
yes, Betty.
were you hoping to do that this evening?
Well, we certainly have a quorum if it's a 3-0 vote on one or both of those.
Do we need any kind of resolution in front of us, because I don't have one?
I know we discussed, I don't think we do.
No.
Okay,
No.
so it's just a matter of
Um,
we propose,
Yeah.
we move that, we create this position, and then we vote.
Well, I think my suggestion would be if you're going to do it, you I don't know, and I don't have it in front of me, have a description of the position of what it's going to entail. And I know we have the, I don't know if I have it.
Ooch. I was
So
gonna
if
say
you have it in the flow chart.
Yeah, I don't have the flow chart with me. I don't know if you have it up there with you, any of you?
And if we were to look at this evening, I'm just going to ask, this was sent out, the agenda, the supporting paperwork was sent out, the agenda like 2 weeks ago, the supporting paperwork.
We did discuss doing it tonight. I did not, my opinion at that time, thank you. My opinion at that time, and I'll repeat it publicly and openly, that my opinion was that we could do it at a workshop meeting.
Yep, no.
And the appointment could be made, it's all provisional, and, which means effectively that it's, it's conditional. I think Josh understands that, I think the board understands it. My only concern is that we want to make sure that in any motion to create the position, that you are, well, I guess if you're creating the position now let me go back on this a little bit.
This gets so bogged down, doesn't it? But, think about it for a moment, but what I wanted to ask the supervisor was, we did discuss this last week at our board meeting. Have you heard from either of the other board members who are not here tonight that they have any issues with this?
I have not.
Okay.
No, obviously,
Because, they've certainly had time to voice their opinion or ask questions.
I will say this, John Cahill was here.
Right.
I have had 2 conversations with John Cahill since last week's meeting, unrelated to this.
Mm-hmm.
He has not voiced anything on those discussions. I do not know if Councilman Abbott has really
I have not heard anything.
seen anything on it. I mean, he's been sent the information.
Okay.
But I'm also sensitive to the fact that he, I don't know. I haven't had any communication with him on that.
just want to be sure.
And I don't know if, for instance, the write-up here, as far as what Braden put, as far as the position, the head of Community Development Department, the last sentence says, the exact title of the position may vary from Community Development Director, but its duties and jurisdictional classification won't. And I use the last sentence because I think Brayton has done some yeoman work, Charlie, as far as researching this with the civil service people that he is in contact with.
I guess my concern is whether or not we should do this by local law, okay? As opposed to just make the appointment. That would add some time to it, but it would be cleaner.
I don't think that this, normally this is not something that we would do at a workshop.
No, you know what?
We'd have formal resolutions in front of us. All the legal stuff would be in front of us. I don't know that we'd have to read the job description, which would be fairly simple. We just would have to go by the flow chart right here. And I don't think that there's any problems. I don't foresee any issues other than to make sure that we.
Let me make a suggestion. We have it's old. By old, I mean in excess of 50 years old. We have a statute, Chapter 56, which creates basically the Director and Department of Public Works for the town. I think that's going to be revamped based on the proposed flow chart that you have already that you've discussed, that you are planning on implementing. I think probably the better thing to do would be to maybe rewrite Chapter 56. It's work, but I think that's the right way to do it. That would create the position that you're looking to put Josh into, in terms of, I mean, effectively, he's doing the work now, and that's not going to change. In his terms of pay, you can deal with that with the finance director and as the budget permits. I don't see that as a real problem. I mean, you've indicated what your intent is. I think it's been very open as to what he's been doing and the work he's been doing. My suggestion would be, and I'm sorry to drop this on you because it's going to be dropped on me, I know that too. So the bottom line is that maybe we redo 56.
Redo the code.
Redo the whole chapter.
And including that, the position of engineer.
We could add the position of engineer in there, yes.
So I want to add that I know this is extremely frustrating for both Josh and the supervisor right now.
Can I tell you why not?
But
This is the one.
I work with Paul Adams. He's been the acting DPW commissioner since probably June 28. This was going to be part and parcel also about the increase in pay to be more commensurate. I can get that done. Fits in the budget.
Right.
So this
but
is.
I would agree with Councilman Dean and certainly with the attorney that when we do this, we want it to be clean and we want it to be right. And unfortunately, this is why things never seem to move very quickly at the board, but it's better to do it that way.
There's the section. Well, section, it's a chapter.
Yeah, I'm really familiar with some of that 56 because I think it was a little bit of a. Well, some of the portions that have been around for 50 or 60 years, I think, were very shocking to some people in this town about what it said. And I don't want to get into a lot of detail on that. So I can't speak for Josh. I know I don't mind going down this path that you're describing right now, because from a budgetary standpoint, and with Paul Adams, the finance director, we can take care of Josh. He has been a good soldier, being the acting DPW commissioner for no increase in compensation for 5 months now. So we'll get that done, because it fits into the budget. It doesn't need an act of Congress to do that. The rest of this stuff, we'll figure out, but I want to make sure, and I'll sit down with you, Charlie, I want us to proceed cautiously with 56. Very cautiously.
Yeah, because there's a lot here in 56.
Yeah. And
And I can answer a question that I sort of posed before, too, about the town engineer, to go back to that. Just doing a quick look at the town law, and particularly section 23 of the, 22 and 23 of the New York State Town Law. I believe that, yes, we can, quote-unquote, waive the residency requirement, but that it would take a home rule message, or home rule request, so it would have to be done by the state legislature. If we do that, create the position of town engineer, as opposed to hiring an engineer for the town, okay? We can have the town engineer not be an elector, they call it, a resident of the town.
And, this is something that I've gotten to know Charlie, and I've gotten to know the board members, and the department heads and everybody. I self-admittedly, I'm just more of a function person over form. And I know this. We need another person in that department that is handling the engineering side of the org chart. And we know what this guy is capable of after he's indoctrination by fire for 5 months. So to get the function that I want done, we need to get those positions in place. Now, the form by which they're done, I don't want to say I don't care, because that's not the proper term, but that's just, I'm self-admittedly, that's just not my strong point. I could be the supervisor for 15 years, and form will never be my strong point. It wasn't when I was a CEO of a company. I had other people take care of the form stuff. You know what I mean? And that's fine by me.
No, I understand.
So I'm really not, the form and the 56 and doing this and that, it's how that works out, but I want to make sure I can get the function to where it needs to be as quickly as possible.
I think we really need to go back and, sorry, we're drifting away from Josh and our community development position, but I'm going back to town engineer for a moment. I think we need to really take a look at that. In that, do we want to create a town engineer position? Because it sounds like that inherently has a resident component to it. Or do we just want to hire an engineer? Because
Are you talking about hiring an engineering firm or hiring an engineer?
Just an engineer. Do they have to have the title of town engineer? Because if town engineer comes with a residency requirement, and then we got to go to home rule to waive it if we find somebody who doesn't. And if we just hire an engineer, I mean, it's been out there 8 days. We don't know why we haven't received any inquiries about it. But it does sound to me like if you're looking for a top-notch engineer and they have to reside in the town, you're not casting a very wide net here, and you may not get the best.
Very good point. And when I said I'm not, and Braden said we're not sure why candidates haven't come in, I don't think there's anything overtly in that posting that says residency. Do you know that, Josh? I don't think there's anything overtly. Now, if candidates are smarter than the town that is recruiting them, they might be like, well, I know it doesn't overtly say residency, but that's a town engineer, and I know civil service law, and I'm not going to apply because I live in Henrietta.
Can I respond to it?
Please do.
I will quote you, and this is from section 20 of the New York State Town Law, and it's section 20, subdivision 2B, and it says, "A town board of any town which shall not have established the office of town engineer," which is this one, may employ an engineer to give it such professional service and advice as it may require. I think that answers your question. There's nothing stopping us from just doing that. So it doesn't say, you know, on an ad hoc basis. I think if you wanted to employ somebody, you could employ it. I think the question might be from a civil service aspect, or from, I don't know how you do that. But I'd rely on Brayton for that. But the bottom line is, yes, I think we can just hire somebody who's an engineer without giving them the title, the formal title of town engineer. Town engineer is one of those created positions, or not created titles. It's, you know, it's in the law. It's been in the town law forever. I don't think most towns even, maybe they do. Maybe they probably have engineers that they've hired, but I don't know if they have the position of town engineer. It's not the same thing
not
as
sure I
highway
understand the
superintendent
value.
or town attorney or town clerk, which each town has for certain reasons, and there's,
Right.
you know,
I'm just not sure I understand the value of the title at this point.
there might not be any. That's a very good question. I don't think we've even gone to that. We've just,
Yeah, I
But
don't,
it's amazing how in the weeds we can get on this
Yeah.
stuff.
well, you know, it's kind of interesting.
You're gonna have to give the person some kind of title.
Well, yeah, and Brayton not being available the last two meetings, well, what he just came up with as job duties and fitting into that org chart, and it didn't come day one, that was after our third meeting with him, is, you know, you were discussing, this is where we're lacking, and then it created that, I think what you're looking at right now, Barry, that, you know, what's under that engineer's purview as far as management. Now, whether there's something about civil service or whatever this is, but if you just call it an engineer, you can't justify that he or she now is going to be responsible for all those things underneath them. I don't know. Is that why he went to town engineer? Because, oh, well, town engineer, yeah, it's totally justifiable what's underneath them. But does town engineer, that one word, town engineer versus engineer, is the action-reaction that there's residency and home rule and statutory and all
yeah,
this
it's
stuff.
one of those things
I
that
don't
starts
know.
leading you down a rabbit hole. The more you get into it.
Yeah.
We are far down that rabbit hole right now.
And Patty, I hope you don't, I'll defer to, you know, and Braden's good at this. I'm gonna look for that type of expertise, Charlie, Braden, whatever, to get us the form with the nice ribbon around it. I'm just being honest with you that I need to move this function along for things that we, you know, the board has been kept very much apprised in the last 5 months since Josh has been the acting DPW commissioner of, I think some yeoman efforts by not just Josh, but the whole team, including Joe and Highway, including Art, and as we try to create a functionality that makes a heck of a lot of sense for the future of how we conduct business in those three departments, DPW, Highway, and Sewer. So I'll admit, I'm a little bit anxious or to get that function going. The quicker we can get the form, I just don't think I'm going to be a good help on that. It's just not my strong suit. Simple as that.
It's something new for us, too. We haven't had it. I mean, it's, you know.
Yeah. But I don't want to jam the function goal, a square peg into a round hole of form, because that's going to be a problem long term. I don't want to do something that's going to cause a problem long term. So that when this board is gone and Charlie's gone and whatever, they're looking like, what the freak did you guys do? This doesn't make any sense.
No, I think you have to think about the fact that we're creating positions not concerning who's in those positions. We're creating job titles, not thinking about who's presently in them. But this stays in peace, so it stays whole 10, 20 years from now.
And Barry, to your point, the reason why I said we should proceed cautiously on 56, and this came up at the last board meeting, I in no way want to eliminate the DPW commissioner position. It's just that we're not filling the DPW commissioner position at this point. This is the Department of Public Works. that flow chart is the Department of Public Works. So you go and you change, 56 identifies DPW Commissioner, all that stuff. That's why I want to be cautious, because you all of a sudden change 56 to you can't eliminate the DPW Commissioner, because that hamstrings us.
Well, I'm not saying,
in the
no,
future.
I think it probably needs to be repealed and rewritten, is what I think, looking at it. No, just, really rewritten. Rewritten, not modified, rewritten.
It's old and out of date,
Right.
as you know.
Are you calling me old enough?
Well, that's, when the curve is as old as you, Mr. Hunt, that make me, that's a problem.
Yeah, I bet there's only two of us in this room, maybe three, that knew who the actual engineer was that filled that position. So he knows.
Continue, I didn't mean
What
to-
are you talking about?
I'm really not.
The engineer position that was held 50 years ago, you know who it was,
But
it was the SOS era.
What's that?
Saransky.
Yeah.
Bill Saransky was
Well,
our
he was,
engineer.
he was commissioner.
It really looks ridiculous, but we have to.
He was town engineer.
I thought he was
Well,
commissioner.
things that are not being spoken.
What was O'Neill? No, it was SOS, all three of those guys.
Bob was inspector. There was a different title.
Let's move.
Yeah. Josh,
That's a long,
tomorrow, okay, we'll figure out this later, but let's get with Paul and whatever, and Carol, and you know what, I mean, I don't think, we're gonna straighten out, it's well within the budget. You,
I'm not going anywhere.
well,
That's good to hear.
you know,
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you. I feel like a broken record saying this, and Joe Herbst, you've been around, the guy has been nothing.
The captain, the lieutenant, the yeoman.
It really, to tell you the truth, I mean, if you're faking it for the last 5 months, I've never seen anybody be able to fake it for that long of, really being diligent about filling this position when it's thankless. And you were hired less than 11 months ago as a deputy with a purview of duties that are not what you're dealing with now. And you've done it with grace, and we need to take care of that. So, well, with that being said, wow, Josh, I think you are the noted authoritarian on the next topic and the last topic of the evening.
Yes. So, as many of you probably know, there was an effort, a design effort in regards to Sandbar Park improvements that started several years ago. And we've subsequently gotten additional state grants as part of the READY program to deal with the high water events that have been affecting the lake and Irondequoit Bay. So the project consultants for the Sandbar Park project, Bear Landscape Architecture, recently reached out to me in regards to the need for wetland delineation study. So my understanding is this is being required by the New York State DEC because there's some reconfiguration of the park itself that's being proposed, and there's also going to be some work along the shoreline as a part of the READY projects. So as a part of obtaining the necessary permits from the DEC, we need to have a pretty good handle on exactly where these wetland areas are in relation to where the disturbance of the shoreline is going to take place. So from what I can tell, past efforts have delineated certain portions of wetlands adjacent to Sandbar Park, but there's quite a missing section that we simply don't have a handle on. So Bear reached out, sent us a correspondence late last week that they are willing to provide a sub-consultant, Ravi Engineering, to conduct this wetland delineation study. And it really is primarily field work. They're gonna send multiple staff to identify and flag where these areas are, using GPS as well as the physical flags. So I guess it's pretty important to the DEC to have very specific information before they issue any permits in terms of shoreline work, to make sure we're not disturbing wetlands, and if we are, that we're taking the proper precautions as the project progresses. So, as I said, they have sent us a proposed scope of work. They're hoping to complete it before the winter arrives, because it is outdoor work. It would be substantially more difficult to do in the snow. And this will also be useful as we move forward to applying for permits for our READY projects, because this is all pretty much in the same vicinity of Sandbar Park, and a little small area further to the west, at the very end of the bay, at the base of the steep slope area. I believe you guys have a map in your packet showing the areas that have already been delineated and the ones, and the missing area
No, I don't.
in between.
It's on the back of this here.
Yes, I do. This is all fine and dandy. I know that we got to do all this stuff. My question, first thing that pops into my head is, how is this going to be paid for?
Wow, that's a very good question.
And we're looking at 4,000,
It's roughly 4,900.
4,900.
Okay, 4,900, so it's not $10,000.
No,
This is not something that Bayer can do themselves.
That is correct, and it's not something that was in their original scope of work for the Sandbar Park design project. So yes,
in fairness to them, this is morphed into other things along the way.
Correct.
Where they may not have foreseen the need to do this. I mean, your explanation of this makes perfect sense to me, and it's like, of course we would have to do something like that.
yeah, so, but to answer your question, I'm not sure how we would exactly pay for it, out of which budget line. That's something that we would have to research a little further.
So contingencies.
Well, if you're doing it now, I mean, it's Paul would probably have some good insights of where to do budget transfers. I think we're better on our budget to actual in 2020 than we anticipated, having just finished the third quarter with all the departments.
Do we need to, we're going down that rabbit hole again, do we need to take a resolution to do this?
Well, do you want to do it before you find out about the budgetary aspect of it?
Not necessarily. I'm asking, do we need to take a resolution to give Bear the approval to move forward with Ravi Engineering? How does this have to happen?
Well, yeah, I think we do, because we're paying, I mean, the money, we're paying for it, correct, Josh?
Yes.
So I think we need to figure out how to get a resolution, and we all agree that this needs to be done. Let's get with Paul to find out how it's going to be
Yeah, I
paid
think
for.
once you do that, you just do a resolution.
We could do a
either
resolution
directing or
that's moving.
permitting.
And then perhaps we might have to do a budget transfer resolution at the
In
same time.
terms of the contract,
Right.
yes.
Would seem to be, I mean, whether you're taking
how we've
it
done other
from
things.
the fund balance, or you're doing a transfer
Right.
from a line item, you
But-
know, but it's gotta make sense.
So
I mean,
my-
it's this park,
But my next question, and it makes perfect sense to me, and let's have Paul figure out where we're gonna get the money from to do it, and like Barry said, it's not $10,000. But this is very time sensitive, can we do this at our next meeting?
We need to.
We do.
I don't see why we can't, and I gotta tell you something, Joe, I'll be very formal or function. I'm still learning. Why this would have to be a resolution is, you know, that's what I would have thought. That it wouldn't have to be, it's not a bid type of thing, it's not over 35,000, but I'm admitting, I
think it's been standard practice in this town to do resolutions for any kind of a contract like this.
Then that's
And
correct.
you know what, when I came here, I agree with you, because I saw a lot of things, I'm going, why do they do resolutions?
Yeah.
But they do, and this is the way it's been done, and this is one of those things you can say there's a reason for it. It's
Sure.
It's open, transparent, no question, it's absolutely transparent. It's not a word that we use.
You got it.
In this case, you're expending,
Yeah.
you know, it's not a huge sum, but it's not a small sum either. Some is $5,000, so yeah, I think it's a
Now,
good
that
idea.
makes sense to me, because it's along the lines of when we said best practice, we're the only town that puts the whole budget out there, used to be on the paper, and I was like, okay, you know what, that's not the law, but I like that best practice, and I think if that's, when you came over here, like, geez, we're doing these resolutions, but it's better safe than sorry, it's best practice to have the board do contracts like that, no argument out of me on that.
Yeah, you can do it. There's no reason, to answer Councilwoman Cataldi, there's no reason why you can't do it next week. By that time, we'll have a chance to check with the Director of Finance, find out where the money's gonna come from, and there you go.
And Josh, Bayer gave us Ravi Engineering.
They're the ones that, yes, they would be a sub-consultant to Bayer. Robbie Engineering would conduct the actual delineation survey.
There's only about 3 or 4
Okay.
companies do location, availability. We
Oh, really? So that's highly specialized.
Yeah, but availability.
Okay, well, you would know.
Yeah.
Charlie, the other piece is, just to be sure that we can make this
Get it
happen
done.
next Thursday, is when we take the resolution to approve this, do we also have to have the resolution for a transfer, budget transfer?
Well, that would be one of the budget transfer, right?
I don't know if he's got any budget transfers up next week, does he?
Well, he can make one.
Well,
Right.
if this is going to be approved, he can put that in the transfer. I don't know, I mean,
Okay,
if
so
you have to do
it's-
that in certain order, you do this first and then do the transfer
It was-
afterwards. If this is the only transfer, yeah.
All right, I guess.
I bet you Paul will figure out where the best source, whether it's,
Yes,
I
I just
hope
wanna
it's
be
not
sure.
fund balance, I hope it's budget transfer.
Right, just want to be sure we don't need a separate resolution for that
Right.
and get caught short-handed next week, because we want to get this signed, sealed, and delivered.
I agree. That's, all right. Let me mark down, I let the Paul off the hook today, he was out for a few days, and I try to not jump in on somebody the day they come back to the office. So he got his day. Tomorrow I'm out. I've only got 37 things I need to talk to him about. That is it for the agenda, for the agenda items. Just as we tie up two things that I thought might be interesting to the board. One, I am meeting Passero and Bayer associates, I think about 4 or 5 of them from both firms, tomorrow morning at 8:30 at the Bayside to meet with the owners of the Bayside. They're going to do some measurements and things like that as we move along in this Ready and Sandbar Park project. Barry, I don't know, I know you're involved in one of the chairs, I think, of the committee that is the
The chair.
Sandbar Park.
Yeah.
But it's, you are the chair, right? Yeah. Right, exactly. I was just testing you. I
So
wanted to see if you remember.
we're gonna call me about 8:15 tomorrow?
Oh, I just am having a bad week. Hey, you wanna come over at 8:30? I mean, I'll bring coffee. Although they make coffee there. I had coffee the last time I was there when I listened. Jeez. I'm just having a bad week.
Just let me know what happened.
For a guy that is always like, you gotta communicate, and I'm not communicating correctly.
Just send me a little note about 9:15 about how it went, okay?
Come on over. And no one else wants to come over too. And then the second thing is, and this is something that
Deputy Supervisor Cataldi and I were talking about earlier, everybody knows we're coming into what looks like the second wave of COVID. We went code yellow zone this week. But it's going to affect not only the people, the residents of the town, but the employees of the town. We went through a lot of things back in March to May as we were all making this up as we go along, trying to figure out, well, how do we handle, working from home, not working from home. If there's somebody that might have COVID or whatever, do they gotta go home for 14? I think we have a much better handle on that now. And I will say that Brayton, he has been tasked, and he asked for the task, I'll say that, to basically hammer down, this is the if-thens for the town employees. I'd like to think he's going to have that by Monday for us. He already moderated a department head meeting, Josh, I think it was Tuesday, kind of gave a framework of it. I think he's got a very good handle on it. And I'd like to, and it's starting to happen already. We've had some, I don't know if you had anything over at the highway garage, Joe, but we've had a town hall where, somebody today stayed home out of precaution, but it's a contact tracing thing. They think they were around somebody who might have COVID, they went and got tested, the person they were around, but they haven't gotten the test back yet. Okay, you're home out of precaution, we don't even know if the person that they were around has COVID. These things are going to happen more and more. So to have a playbook where everybody's now like, what do we do, I think is going to be very valuable. Patty basically took one for the team back in March and April on this.
We
And
were all flying by the seat of our
flying,
pants.
I was I thought you did a damn good job.
We were flying the plane as we were building it, actually, yes.
And Brayton even gave a compliment to, I saw what you did as the board resolution, whatever, you could tell there was a lot of cobbled things together, but he said, that's as good as you could get based on the, what you were challenged with. Things were flying. We were flying the plane as we were building it. So I'd like to think with what we know now, and with Brayton's really grasp on these things and organizational skills, I'd like to think by Monday, if we can get through tomorrow, when we come back to work on Monday, we'll be able to present to the department heads a more robust version of, Josh, what was it that, and Karen, at the Zoom meeting with the department heads the other day.
And a lot of recommendations have changed since March and April.
They really have, yes.
So now it's 10 days from onset of symptoms rather than 14, and there's all kinds of things that need to be tweaked in that.
I haven't asked Brayton yet, I don't know.
It's interesting because we sat down tonight and I said to you, I need to get with you because I think I wanted to talk to you about Brayden looking at that and revamping it. And you said, I just had that discussion with him. So we were going down the parallel path of that, and I'm glad.
Yeah. Barry, if it makes you feel any better, Barry, that I didn't talk to you about coffee tomorrow.
I don't know what
I didn't call Patty about this when,
I know
I've
what
just
you're
had,
about.
I've had a bad communication.
Doesn't make me feel any better.
I'm just telling you, I'd give myself a D for the week so far.
I'm not sure that he's pouting down there.
I think he might be. You know something? I'll bring you a donut too. I don't. I pain in my eyes. Unless anybody else has anything.
I already have one employee that has COVID, but he's been isolated.
Yes.
And you saw I sent in my flow chart.
Yes.
So we had that meeting with the general population 3 weeks ago. So, but in all honesty, I couldn't hear squat from what Brayton was saying. That phone connection stunk.
Yeah, and
It hung up on
Yeah.
me twice.
I know. And, not for nothing, I think what you've done at the highway garage, I think what Terry has done at the library, really good structure to separate staff and safety items. And not for nothing, I saw that firsthand when I was a guest last week. Yeah. Let's just say that. No, but the employees at What's that?
Got your point.
Well, if anybody's still watching, please keep your leaves out of the gutters, okay? Please keep those leaves on the grass.
Boy, the leaves are down and the roads are covered. My
Yeah.
goodness. It's just, and it's not necessarily through any of the residents' fault. I mean, the roads are, some of the roads I was over today were just completely covered.
Yeah.
Gutters full, didn't look like they'd been raked.
Yeah.
They just, that's where they ended up from the wind.
We're doing good. Mother Nature's been good so far. We'll see what happens next Tuesday, but we're making good headway on it.
Well, it's Tuesday.
Snow.
It is,
4-letter word, snow.
well, I can tell you firsthand, that crew works hard.
Oh, yeah, no question.
And I got fired from that crew, didn't I, Joe? If I do come back, I'm gonna pace myself better. I'm gonna pace myself
You
better.
exercise your probationary clause. So now you know what provisional means.
Jeez, I'll tell you. I'll tell you. There was a gentleman, probably my age, around my age, on Dickinson, I was leaned over, holding my knees. He came up out of his yard. He goes, "Are you okay, bud?" I'm like, "No, I'm good. Frankly, I don't think he knew I was the town supervisor, because I would have been embarrassed.
I would guess not.
You know?
Unless you were wearing your name tag.
I was not wearing my name tag. But I do like those orange vests, or the yellow vests. It's very snazzy. And, no, I saw you guys, I saw the crew out working Saturday, so I mean, you guys are out there. You're out there. You're trying to stay on top of it as best you can, and.
Well, you get around town this next time and you'll have 90% of them, because
Yeah.
man, they're down.
Yeah, yeah.
They're down pretty good, boy. The yards are completely covered down to it, road.
I don't have to bang the hammer, we're done, right?
We're done.
All right, I got my notes. We got some